right, so once you guys are done with your practice to our next project, you have your name or your letter totally done, excuse me, with color paper that's taped on the back and no two colors are the same or touching next to each other, then you're good to go to start prepping for our next project. So we'll go over it more next week, but just so you can get a head start, know that your assignment is to be illustrating a story that has to revolve around either gods or heroes. That includes like goddesses and heroines, right? So first I would brainstorm some ideas here. Stories that you know, or you could do a quick research and think about some stories that would be interesting. So I would come up with like 3 to 5 ideas. So I might think like Hindu gods that you know about, maybe stories that you know about Hindu gods. If you don't know any, you could research some. You could even, if you wanted to be really simple, you could think about like symbols that represent those, like the lotus flower. So just brainstorming here. You could do mythology, and that could be any culture's mythology that you know about or that you do some researching of. So it could be something like Medusa, or it could be something like mermaids. And The Little Mermaid, yes, the first thing we probably think about is Disney, but that's actually an old story where The Little Mermaid is more of a heroine, totally different story than Disney. But if you were to look that up, and you could pick a part of that story and illustrate it. And, you know, it could be something as simple like some kind of biblical story, right, which I think we're probably most familiar with. You know, we could think like Noah's Ark, something that would be fun and interesting to illustrate. One more off the bat could be, you know, like the Holy Ghost. Thinking maybe like the image of a dove or a bird. Okay, so you're going to be doing your own brainstorm, having at least 3 to 5 things you're kind of writing off each other, just like I did. Okay, and then you're going to pick one from here, and you can circle it, whatever. And then in another page, you're going to do a composition, rough draft of how that might look. Okay, so you can get some reference, or you can kind of make this your own style. You know, maybe I do something very simple, thinking about like Noah's Ark, you know, but then I'm thinking that I'm going to be having some animals there. So you might want to get some references from the computer, or, you know, books, or whatever you want to do. So you practice your composition. How might that look? And then you start to plan it on your project paper. So you should have gotten a piece of project paper that is white. And this is just a plan. A white piece of project paper could be 11 by 14, could be 11 by 17. It could be as big as 15 by 20 for this, all right? Now keep in mind, just because it's small doesn't mean that it's easier. If it's small paper, I'm going to expect very small cuts. So a lot more intricate work. This is a small paper with some small cuts and shapes. If it's larger paper, then you can get away with larger cuts, all right? And the larger pieces are more impressive, all right? But just keep that in mind. Just because it's smaller does not mean it's easier. So what would I do? Let's say you have your brainstorm done, you have your image planned out in your sketchbook. Then you're going to take your project paper, and you're going to have your draft and also have your references, and you're going to, with a pencil, start to draw in your illustration of your story. Okay, and what I'm going to do is make sure you guys know this is going to be a continuous line drawing. All right, so just like we've been practicing a little bit all year, I'm going for a dove right now, thinking more like a Holy Ghost image. That's the story I'm kind of pinpointing on here. You're going to make sure that the lines all connect. I'm not too worried about like how we practiced some continuous line drawings where the pencil picks up off the paper or not. That's not what we're worried about. we're planning and prepping for this to be the black paper where the lines all stay connected. So that's why I want the lines here to connect. So working with the continuous line drawing like we did for our last project, just in the planning phases. And I can always clean this up. I'll be showing you what I mean by that. So whatever size paper you have, you're going to fill the space. All right, now, so I have my visual, the positive, meaning the subject, that's done, but the negative space needs to be completely considered. So you're going to hear me say, you know, this is where you scaffold with some of your drawing. This could be just some shapes, like different shapes that I have going on in the background, or I could have it be part of my imagery. So if I wanted this to look like this bird is in the sky, maybe I make something look more like clouds or a sun in the background, okay? But again, all the lines have to touch, okay? I'm just gonna go for speed to show you guys, make sure you guys get the point. I'm just gonna break it up into some geometric shapes here. Some large, some small, some medium. Because this is eventually going to become our black sheet of paper, but this is just helping us plan for it, okay? So, can I draw the negative space to be part of the scene? For sure, I would encourage you. Here's a completed piece, right? So it looks like that sky, that space. Here's the sky that I'm mentioning up here, right? And this looks like space. It's going behind this world, behind the cross, all right? Or you can have it be more abstract, just shapes, but they still are interesting, have some movement, some flow, right? And the way that you put the color is going to help pop the positive spaces, okay? So here we are. We've completed our continuous line drawing in pencil on our white paper, okay? That's going to help us for our project. Once you've done that, you're going to take a black Sharpie. Those should be up at the material table. And you're just going to cleanly go over all your lines. And keep in mind that whatever lines you keep at this point in black, that's what's going to be the black paper on your project, okay? So these students did this too. The thickness of these black lines were determined from their Sharpie on the white paper. And if that doesn't make sense to you yet, it's okay. I'm just trying to get us to go step by step. So I'm going to clean this beak up, and I might want to keep some of it, but maybe I don't want to keep all of it. Maybe I want some to be thinner. Maybe I want some lines to be thicker. But I do need to make sure that all the lines connect. There's no broken spaces anywhere. They don't just stop. Like I wouldn't just stop there and then start here. All right, so hopefully you kind of get where this is going. And you guys can add as much detail as you want. All right, so I think we'll do one more here, and then you guys should be able to get the point and do this on your own. But what I want you to understand is that the pencil just kind of helps you get the design in there, and then the Sharpie, you really decide, what do I want to keep? What shapes do I want to keep for my stained glass lines? Okay, so that's what your job is today, guys. I want this part done by next class, and you should be good to go. all the lines in nice black, filled in with Sharpie, some thick, some thin, keeping in mind that if it's thin, that's how thin you're going to cut it in your black piece of paper, all right? And you're going to be including the negative space. Whether you design that as something, like for me, I could make it a tree or a cloud or sun like I mentioned, or other birds, you know, whatever you want to do that enhances your story. Or it could just be some geometric or organic shapes. Okay, so once those all connect, you get the picture. I would have done this all over. What you're gonna do is take your pencil. You can erase the lines you didn't keep, that's fine, and you just X out all the shapes. Because every little shape, whether it's big or small, that has an X on it is going to be cut. And the reason I also want you to do this is I want you to not only identify the shapes you're going to be cutting, but it's a good way to check, like, oh, that's not closed, and that's going to be a really big shape. Do I want to add another line there? Or how do I want to make sure that this shape has some more structure? So I add a little bit more scaffolding there. Okay, so it gives you another chance to just kind of make sure that everything will work logistically for you when you go to do the actual cuts. All right? And yes, the more small shapes you have, the more detail you can have, but you do also need some nice large and medium shapes to have variation, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Again, brainstorm 3 to 5 ideas, all right? However you want to brainstorm, can be anything, pretty general, gods, heroes, goddesses, heroines. Draft up at least half page in your sketchbook what your composition might look like. Then make sure you have reference images and your sketch as you lay everything in, considering the negative space as well, going over in Sharpie. Once that's all done, then you're going to go back and find all your shapes and put X's in them, okay? And that's where I'll meet you guys next week.